So, good afternoon, and welcome to your next presentation, 70-20-10. Don't buy the what, buy the why. So we thought we'd be a little bit provocative this afternoon, rather than give you another deck of slides showing you another product that you could buy. There'll be a bit of that, but not very much, right? If you fear change, now's the time to leave, because we might be asking you to change your mind about something. And it's a nice little tip box I saw in the US when I was out there recently. And tips are quite important. We're going to come back to that a little later on. So who am I? Well, my name is Boyd Glover. And if you're searching the internet for images, as we all do of each other these days, when you're like, who am I seeing? Can I remember what they look like? You might find this image. Now, clearly, this isn't me. I thought Boyd Glover was quite a unique name until I found out that there are 27 felons in the United States who have criminal convictions with my name. That's kind of worrying, right? The things you can find on the internet now. So yeah, this is me, the real me, the one that we're here to talk about today and talk with. So I previously was head of skills training for Dixon's Retail, where I spent 16 years looking after 45,000 people, 26 countries, lots and lots of stuff to do with shops, as we like to call it. I decided to set off on my own, and today I'm pleased to be talking as independent consultant in conjunction with TWM. So we're going to cover three things today: 70-20-10, a useful methodology, and we're going to add a twist. Hopefully you like that. It's about social, isn't it? Or is it about the individual? A little bit of a case study, and people can come up at the end if they've got any Q&A, and we can do that. So working with the working manager, they have a stand just over there, and Tracy is waving already, and I haven't even said anything good yet, and he's waving. That's really good news. We look forward to, if you have time, to come and have a chat with us if you're interested in the topic a little bit further. So 70-20-10. I was first introduced to 70-20-10 by the infamous Charles Jennings. I'm sure many of you have seen him at these events. If not, go and look him up, and you can join the 70-20-10 forum, who we are also members of, and you can find more about it from Charles. But Charles came to me when I was at Dixon's and convinced me that this might be a useful thing for me to consider. And it seemed to answer a lot of challenges that I had at that moment in time. So for those of you who may not be too familiar with it, what is 70-20-10? It's a premise that says that 10% of what we learn in some sort of formal context. Now, in the work world, we tend to think of that as maybe traditional classroom training, which has an important component. And maybe now we've moved on to things like e-learning and those kind of areas. So this is learning that assumes I don't know something, and at the end of the course, I need to know something. And usually there's a test as well, just thrown in for good measure. Social learning, that's quite a hot topic at the moment. And the premise here is that we get about 20% of what we learn from other people. We ask questions, we interact. In a work context, quite often this looks like things like buddies. You know, you just join a new workplace, they buddy you up with something, there's social interaction, and you learn things. And then the biggest part is you're learning through doing. So some sort of practical experience, real-world experience, and I learn it. So 70-20-10 is being spoken about a lot at this event. Also, it's been spoken about for the last few years at this event. And there's lots of vendors talking to you in lots of different ways about 70-20-10. What's interesting, though, about all these different representations of essentially the same thing is hardly anybody will talk to you about why you should do it in the first place. So they'll tell you what it is, and they'll tell you that you should do it, but when you actually think about it, why would I do it? What's the benefit to the business, to me, and more importantly, to the learners? So if you take some work from the United States that Simon Sinek has done, he has a premise that says start with why. So before you do anything, really narrow down what is the why for our business. And we just like to hypothesize what some of those might look like for you. So in Dixon's, when we had this challenge, it looked like this from an investment perspective. So when we looked at 70-20-10 and looked at where we were spending the money, most of the money was following the formal training in some way. So there was lots of workshops, great management development, lots of compliance training for various different parts of the business. Brilliant stuff, lots of money going into LMS, e-learning content, etc. But actually when you swung that around and said how much money is being spent on people in the workplace actually doing the job, Are we as relevant? Are we really there? So one of the whys that people often see, and what I see with a lot of my clients, is it allows you to rebalance. Yeah, rebalance your budget and think about, actually, if I'm not in the 70% space, I'm probably not relevant to the learners. So it's really, you can understand why you might just find it difficult to get traction with certain things, because you're just not relevant to where they are. Another way to think about 70-20-10, another why, is to possibly strip away the numbers. And a little hypothesis for you, what if we took 70-20-10 and said, take away the numbers and maybe treat it more like a learning cycle? Probably as L&D professionals, a lot of us recognize this kind of approach, where it's a mix of all three, right? It's maybe not just one, it's a bit of everything. So for example, you can change your management development program to be a mixture of different activities that relate better, including providing content or work for the people in practice. And maybe this is a different way of thinking about it. Now, a lot of people with 70-20-10 are using it as a vehicle to talk about social learning. It's quite a big topic at the moment. Lots of people here I've heard talking about it. And yet social learning isn't new. We've been doing social learning since we learned how to draw on cave walls, right? We're pretty good at it as human beings. It's a natural tendency. All that's happened is technology is caught up in a way that allows us to do it in new ways. Yet Josh Bersin proposed back in 2009 that we were entering the era of we learning. That's 2009. Now, if you were in the keynote this morning and he was talking about how fast things are moving, things are doubling, tripling, we're not standing still in the way we used to do. 2009, 4 years ago, it's out of context. I don't think people want we learning anymore. They want me learning. They want learning that's for me. So anybody who's seen my presentations before know I always use this slide. Seymour is a great benchmark for me. Seymour Papert from the US. This gentleman was responsible for putting a laptop into every single school pupil's hands in the state of Maine in the United States. And when I say every pupil, I mean when you go to school at 4 years old, you are given a laptop, and it's yours. And then you get a new one every single year until you finish college and university. They really went in for this big time. They really understood the future of education, because what they understand is you can't teach people everything. What we've got to do is arm people to understand how to find it for themselves. Where do they go? How do they find it? So the challenge when you introduce social is people put social targets. So we like to measure things, as everybody does. Now, this is a very typical social target. You may have seen it in your business. We want 100% usage. We're putting in social. To get the return on investment, everybody's got to use it. You're right, okay. Good luck with that. It's very unlikely that everybody's going to use it. And partly we can see the reason for that with some work that Jakob Nielsen did for AT&T. And he called it the social phenomena. And what he found out during his research is that about 1% of your audience will naturally contribute something. They'll be quite into it, they'll have a go, and they'll contribute content. And they'll contribute to the conversation. Then you get about 9% of people who are prepared to edit it. So they wait for somebody else to do something first, and then they do something extra. And they might make it better, add to the conversation, share it, link it, those kind of things, which leaves a vast proportion of people who simply consume it. If you're trying to get all of those people to be usage, as in I must contribute something socially, it really struggles to work and it struggles to land. I was listening to a colleague of mine talking about a business they've implemented some social learning technology with, and the company's getting really frustrated in their return on investment because initially the usage was high and now it's tailed off. How many times have we all seen that? Starts off good, then just dissipates. And we can understand that if we go back to some work from Everett M. Rogers in 1962. And anybody in sales and marketing will recognize this slide instantly. The law of diffusion of innovations. It's a great one to get your tongue round, right? Law of diffusion of innovations. But essentially what it's saying is there are always people at the beginning who will do it. Your early adopters. These people will go for it. And then you have the chasm, which comes out really well on the black slide with grey and you can't really see it. But there's a big chasm there, which is how do you get people to all take part or want to take part? And maybe there are different ways we can think about that. Maybe we can start to think about things like social proof. And I don't know if you've ever been, I like the United States. If you go to a bar in the United States, one of the things that they really want are tips. The barman really likes tips, right? They want you to put money in the pot. Now, what's interesting is how many people put money in an empty pot? Not many. All right, they go, there's something wrong with you. Your service isn't very good. There's something not quite right. I don't want to be first to put $1 in. So actually, what you normally see in a bar is something that looks more like that. The triple down economy. They've kind of put a joke spin on it, and they fill it with some money on the premise that if it's got money in it, you might put money in it as well when you buy your drink. And if you think about that from a learning perspective, it's amazing how many people put out a social learning platform and leave all of the view counters at 0. You think about that. So you want me to be first? The contribution and the comments boxes have nothing in them. You want me to be first? Only 1% of your people are naturally going to want to do it. How are you going to make this bigger? Put something in it. Start them off. Give them a go. Make it look like other people have contributed. And what's great about social proof is that we follow it as human beings. When we see it, we know what it means. We follow on. We naturally do it. So if we readjust our training goals from being actually in training professionals, we're trying to get everybody trained, really what the business wants is just capable people. And actually, why are we so precious about knowing whether we've trained them, that the LMS must measure them, and we need to know all these things? Of course, there are times for that. Compliance specifically springs to mind. Yet, is that everything that we need in order to get engaging people? So a quick case study for you. The Working Manager are a 70-20-10 based organization. And they're building something called the consortium at the moment of like-minded businesses that want to help you define why you would use 70-20-10 and how that works in your business. So they're working with a company at the moment, which is Bromford, and they're a social company. They provide social housing and social services for people right across society. Excellent work. And in that organization, it means a lot for people to work there. They're giving back to the community. And so Bromford want to give back to them as individuals. And as a social business, they have adopted quite a lot of social technologies. So they have a Twitter account, which is very highly used, and many other versions of social media, which you can see linked to. So what TWM have been able to do is come into Bromford and actually say, let's define your why. Let's start to think about your learners. And as we start to generate the platform for you, and we bring together other technologies that you've already got, let's start to provide things that the learner can do. So for example, in this area, they're actually asking the learner to think about their own learning. And depending on how they score themselves on these competencies, determines what kind of content is going to start to arrive for them and what's going to happen in their PDP, all becomes self-driven. So it starts to become about them. And of course, as you would imagine, you can measure it, and you can measure the statistics. But what's great is that Bromford aren't hooked on the 100% number. They know you don't need to have 100% out the box. What you need is people to contribute because they want to, and that there's a purpose in it, and that it adds value to them, and in turn it adds value to the business. So in that context, we're talking about personalization. And what does this mean? Because if you think about the law of diffusion again, personalization really is the secret to creating engagement. If it's about me, I'm probably more inclined to take part. So Barbara Harrow-Carson's talked about students learn what they care about from people they care about and who they know care about them. You know, in your organization, do people even know who the L&D team are? Do the operators really know? Interesting. How many of them are hidden somewhere? So let me give you some personalization examples from the corporate world. So not training. It gives us the chance to separate our minds a bit from our normal day job and think about something different for a minute. So Walt Disney is I'm a fan of Walt, given all of his faults. Nevertheless, I'm a real fan. And he's got a really great quote. It's kind of fun to do the impossible. Now, Disney do that every single day in their business. And here's just one example. They run theme parks, you might be surprised to hear. And in Florida, they get over 58 million visitors to their 4 theme parks every single year. And the challenge to Disney is, how do you personalize each guest's visit? How do you make it unique? There's 58 million people. That sounds like quite a tall order. So they've secretly been working on some new technology for the last 4 or 5 years. I say secret, they've spent about $1 billion on it, so it's on their balance sheet, but nobody knows what it is yet, and this is an early version of it. And what you can see here is a post with a picture of Mickey on it, and somebody with a red wristband. And that wristband has RFID technology built into it. And it actually is now the way that people will gain entry into a Disney theme park in Florida. Now, great, it's replaced the ticket. You know, the ticket's gone, you get a wristband. So what? You know, what's different? What's better? And what Disney do is they send this wristband to you when you book your visit. They go, hi, thanks very much for booking. Here's your wristband. What we'd like you to do is go to the website that we've created, and we'd like you just to confirm you've received effectively your ticket, your wristband. And if you would like, it's purely opt-in, we'd like you to share some extra information. Anything you want. For example, it could be your date of birth, so we know your birthday. It could be your favorite ride in a Disney park. It could be your favorite restaurant. It could be your favorite food. It could be your family members' names. Who's traveling with you? Any information that you're prepared to share. If you share it, when you get to a Disney theme park, when your band hits that tag, the handheld computer that the cast member has knows that information instantly. So they can say things, for example, like, welcome, Boyd, to your favorite ride. We've saved you the best seat. Does it matter if they actually have? Probably not. I'm just excited they know who I am, right? They've used my name. And when you think about your learning, how personal is it really? Or is it just generic? This is the same thing for everybody. And the most personal we get is we suck your name up from the LMS and we go, hello, that's it. Nothing else about you. We don't know what else you've learned. We don't know your preferences, nothing. We just do it to everybody. And personalization, I think, is one of the routes we can go, and it's spreading all over the world. For example, this gentleman runs a Chinese restaurant in San Francisco. It's a Chinese restaurant with a difference. There's no menu. I said, cool, right? So you go in, you sit down, and the chefs come to talk to you. And they say, what food do you like? Yeah, what's your favorite kind of food? What meat do you like? What vegetables? And then they go away and create your own personal meal. That's worth paying for, right? As soon as it's more personal, you want it more. It's got more value. It's important to you. We see these adverts running from Barclaycard all over the place. Why are a bank advertising you can put your picture on a debit card? And they're spending a lot of money on it. There's only one reason. They want you to connect with the bank personally. And we all know what people think about banks currently, so that's quite important. So the secret of education seems that it lies in respecting the pupil, or maybe relating to your learners more as customers, people that you really need to add value to, otherwise they're not going to take part. And this guy is brilliant at it. If you get a chance, go and look him up, Gary Vaynerchuk. He runs all sorts of business. He's a major entrepreneur in the United States. And he's got an online wine business, sells wine over the internet. And he's got a customer service department. Now, you would have thought a customer service department is where people go when they want to say great things about your business. Of course, what we all know is actually that's where people go to complain, right? So something's gone wrong, I ring the customer service department, they fix the problem, and maybe they're good in their business and they go and sort out the underlying problem as well. So Gary said, I need something else. I need to make this personal. Why is it people have to contact me? Why can't I contact them? So he's introduced a new area, which I think L&D can learn from a lot. And he calls it the thank you department. He's created a whole team of people, and their only job is to contact the customer and say thank you. The thing is, they have to do it differently for every customer. So these guys have to be really creative. It takes the human being to its natural place, where we can be creative, not prescripted. They don't send the same email to everybody. They send something different. And one of the great examples he talks about is a client who ordered some wine. Well, not unusual, since it's a wine business. And they said, we need to say thank you to this customer. So they started following the customer's Twitter feed. Now, in the space of a week, they found out a lot of information about the customer that the customer was quite openly sharing out in the cloud. So he was talking about his baseball team. who his favorite player was, when the game next was, and then he was tweeting at the game. And you could follow his emotions as the game was playing, and the game was not going their way, and he got a bit sad, and then they lost, and he was a bit grim. And then he started tweeting happy things again, saying, never mind, we'll win the next game, we're brilliant, I love my favorite player. So what the thank you department did, after listening to this Twitter feed, was they went onto eBay, found this favorite player's signed jacket, bought it, framed it, and sent it to the customer to say thank you for buying some wine. Now, what's interesting is the email they got back from the customer, which took a few weeks. He didn't respond straight away. Took a few weeks, and he said something very simple along the lines of, I spend over $3 million a year on wine, and you're the only company who not only knows what wine I buy and which credit card I use, but you know why I buy it. You're the place I'm going to come to buy all of my wine. Yet they never would have known that if they'd done it the traditional way. So the hypothesis here is people don't want email anymore, they want me-mail. How many of you have got filters on your email box, sending stuff off, junking it, getting rid of it? Because it's not for you. You know that. It's just marketing. How personal can you make it? And take this to the world of learning. If it isn't personal, why should I bother? If it's not for me, I don't really see the point. And that explains a lot of our problems, I think. So the last quote for you here is something that's very recent. Oprah Winfrey just received an honorary doctorate, as they often do in the US. Wish I could get one. I had to do hard work. She said, of all the interviews I've done, the one common factor is that everyone is looking for one thing, validation. And she's spoken to the most powerful people, arguably, in the world, including people like Obama and Clinton, when they were sitting as presidents. And each one of them at the end of the interview leant over when the mics were off and said, how did I do? Was I any good? How many people are in your workplace right now and all they really want is somebody to say, do you know what? You're doing all right. You're going in the right direction. And what are the ways that learning technology could open that up for us? We're hearing things like gamification. Is that a way of doing it? What things could we do that really add that value to the learner? So the last thing we just want to do is give you a slightly different perspective with one of the companies that's going to be working with TWM in the consortium, which is a company called SelfPoint. I have to self-confess I'm involved, so there's a little bit of self-gratification here. And SelfPoint is based on a basis that we're using mobile phones increasingly in our lives, and therefore we want to use them at work. And we know a lot of companies are talking about bring your own device, and it normally comes from the IT department with a sharp intake of breath, right? Which is, how on earth do you control something that isn't the company's? And people are really worried about it. And so most companies here will talk about, we'll provide you with apps, and we'll put security in, and we'll do all of the things that you normally do, and that might have a really great place. Yet really, what the person wants is when they get to something they need to do, can they use their phone to help them? Think the 70%. I'm there now, I need to do it. So one of our early clients, for example, has got technicians who've got to fix these. They turn up, okay, they've had their formal training. Yeah, they can ring other people if they need social help. Yet when they get there, the company wants them to remember all of this. All right, so one technical manual for a printer is over 3,000 pages long. It's quite difficult to remember all of that. And if you sell over 300 different models, it's even harder. Yet they've got these things. They're sat in their pockets. Either the company's given them one, or they've got their own. And the premise is very simple. What if this helps you with this? That's it. Just give them the specific thing they want when they want it, and make it simple. It doesn't even need to be an app. You don't even need to buy an app. Just use the internet. It already exists. Yeah? And if it's just a bit of a manual that helps you understand that, do you really need to lock it down behind 128-bit, totally encrypted? Yeah? So think about it, No usernames, no passwords, no platform, no hassle. Just get to what you want when you want it. So the last thing we'd like to leave you with today is a different way to think about 70-20-10. as we've taken you on this roller coaster that is not just what it is, but why we might do it and how we might rethink how it might fit our business and really start to personalize the learning. And we think it is all in the why. And so you can never get away without a Venn diagram somewhere in one of these presentations, right? So if you put personal at the heart of what you're doing and why it, as we say, focus on each learner's requirements. What mix of formal, shared practice learning do you need? And yet remember, you need all three probably. Increase the engagement, because if it's about me, I'm probably going to do it. If it's just about the company, do you know what? I'll wait till you absolutely tell me I've got to. Yeah, and then I like to call it maliciously comply. You know those ones, yeah? I did it, there's a tick, but don't ask me to remember anything about it, right? And invest in a range of options, not just one or two. And one of the things that TWM and I are doing is saying, do you know what? If you work with us, you might not even need to buy any technology. You probably already got it. Maybe you just need to use it differently. Maybe you need to surface it differently. Maybe you need to bring together your SharePoint that IS or IT are really passionate about, along with your LMS, and maybe just give it a different way for people to access it that is personal for them. You know, make it really about them. So we hope today that you've had a really great thought process listening to me. So my name's been Boyd, and the guys over on TWM are going to be there, and Tracy, I put his name up there. Hello. Give him a wave. You can wave now. That's Tracy. You know, Tracy is a highly proficient learning professional, and we'd love to talk to you more about our concepts and ideas around don't buy the what, buy the why. Thank you very much.